maybe it's worth mentioning with regards to science and science metaphors. Like it's always the question of how do people, within the Israeli intelligence and also abroad, but naturally within the Israeli intelligence, how do they conceptualize what you call the T, like the neurons? Like, how do they conceptualize it? And very early, relatively, in this research, like maybe a year and a half ago, or at least a year ago, I recorded like the energy utility scale 101 neos, like a series that deals with energy. And later I've recorded many other kind of videos, or extension videos with regard to energy. And it was very important to me, just as from the beginning of the series, like to stress very, very, boldly that there is, for me, there is like a huge issue with metaphorization that I became aware of, like, and especially metaphorization of energy, because these people, both Titans and humans in Earth, they don't know much about, like, what you call the T, and why it's needed, the train bacteria. They are kept in secret, even though these things are pertinent for their own life, not just well-being, but for the survival, and also indirectly for the survival of the state. Because T catastrophes are, always, start wars. There's going on, like, almost the day 500 of the war. It started because of this T catastrophe. Now, because it's so, it's so secretive, they only speak about it, like, with metaphors. And at some point I understood that one of the most important metaphors for them is an energy metaphor. Like, they use the term energy quite a bit. And I understood very quickly that they don't know what they speak about. They are completely oblivious to the facts. And that is a huge problem. And all of that is referred to in the energy, the utility scale Neros 101. And this is discussed quite a bit. And I can really recommend listening to this series if you didn't listen to it, because even though it's like 5 or 6 hours, but it is important. And like, it's a basis for like other videos that are also important, in which we prove all sorts of stuff that are very interesting with regards to neurons and with regards to, or what you call the T, and with regards to energy, including energy transfer over the void, and very interesting stuff. This was, were proven, under the microscope, but also like in macroscopic ways, like in repeatable, experiments. Especially the DC over air experiment, which is incredibly important and documented very well in this channel. So I'm not going to repeat myself too much. I'll just say that there is a huge problem that, they don't, at some point I understood they don't understand what's going on. And there is also like an additional problem is that there are also sorts of torture and subjugation that are used by the Shabak and also other services, like what I call the golden earring, like the music that you always need to listen to, like the addiction to music, or and other kind of like electromagnetic torture that people are sometimes they confuse either intentionally or not with all sorts of like an energetic process or energy transfer processes. And in addition to that, many people are highly infected with the train bacteria, and they require the tea in order to survive as a medicine. And sometimes they also speak about that like it's kind of like an energy issue. All of that is very, very wrong. Just to say, yes, listen to the series if you didn't listen to the series already, but just to say, all of that is very, very wrong. It is true that the neurons can act as capacitors. This was proven pretty late relatively in the study, but it was proven at some point, even though it must be like that. But for so many reasons, yes, they must be capacitor to some extent, but it's not like that they're major, it's far, it was very clear to me, just from the beginning of the research that, capacitors, treating them like as capacitors is like treating humans as capacitors. Like to say you human is a capacitor because, I have a belly, so I'm a capacitor. You listen, capacitor. Capacitor doesn't necessarily need to be like a battery. Mostly when you say capacitors, in physics, like, you mean battery, which means like a chemical device that stores like chemical energy that can relatively easily be transferred to electric energy with some kind of parameters. So in other words, battery. But it doesn't have to be battery. This is also a capacitor. It's capacitor. So you can say, I mean, to say that human is a capacitor is, of course, not just unethically stupid. So why is it stupid? Because, mathematically speaking, the energy that a person transfer using, like, you do not, by definition, you do not lose or produce energy, but you transfer energy. And this is the meaning of, physically speaking, work. Work, you have your own interpretation of what is work, but work from the physical perspective is transfer of energy. Like the change of energy from one thought to another. This is work from the physical perspective. Okay? And so human work, a human works, and the total work that a human is doing throughout his life, his or her life, is tremendously larger than like the amount of energy that is stored within his capacitor, heroes a capacitor at any given point. Even if he's like Yokozuna, especially if he's Yokozuna, but even if it's I don't know what, so fat, but not moving at all, still, in a lifetime, there will, he or she will, transfer tremendously more energy than is stored in any given point. So this is like a mathematically saying this is not a capacitor, it's a worker. The same is true for the neurons. Of course, they can be treated or conceptualized as capacitor, but this is very wrong. Because they transfer energy. And that's their main, so who's to say what's their main action, attribute or property? It's like a philosophical question, but it's obvious, just by, experiment that they transfer much more energy than they store. But of course, they need a source. That's why, you have the whole energizing the neural, project, which is a huge part of the scientific part of this channel since 26 months ago. First with electrical energy and then with heat. And also with, in vivarium, with chemical energy that is stored in germs that they eat or microbes they consume. Now the problem is that, many people, they are totally immersed with the energetic, metaphorization that they don't understand. They speak about stupid stuff, and sometimes they think that, they speak about things like in a scientific way, but they use a language that is totally inappropriate, to things that they discuss. And this is a huge problem. And I know, this, it reminds me, two kind of spheres of knowledge come to mind when you think about it. First is the sphere of knowledge of popular science, especially popular physics, that many times, because of the, modern physics is so complicated, that many times, the matter of, especially, cosmology or, subatomic particle, physics, that means many times, just, in order to make it presumably simpler or, edible to the common person, authors of popular science use all sorts of terminology with regards that is completely detached from reality and does not convey any meaningful information. And so people can actually think that they understand, but they don't understand anything because the language is completely do not fit, the problem at hand. Another sphere of knowledge that comes in mind is like medieval studies, or in general, I would say the practice of proto-science by ancient people or very, people for old days, like maybe, medieval times or even before that. European medieval times or even before that. Many times, they use all sorts of metaphors and language that today seems, either incomprehensible or just, gibberish or not fit, to describe reality. And it's not just that they describe reality, they make they add all sorts of conclusions. מדברים על יומוס, אני לא יודע על מה, מדברים כל מיני, they use all sorts of stuff that, they do not describe reality in any meaningful way. And the same is going on